Nepal is the latest country in the Indian subcontinent to face a color revolution. What's been happening for the last few days would have been unthinkable even a few months ago. But such is the nature of revolutions that when things come to a head, when mobs take over the streets, things change. History is written in a matter of hours, possibly. Here to talk with us about it is our diplomatic editor, Jayanth. I am opinion editor, Amitava Sanyal. Let's start with a bit back. 10 years ago, India did a blockade of Nepal. There was a souring of relationship. Then there was a cooling, working together. India and Nepal are very close, historically, people to people, everything. What has happened in the recent past that led to this?
The protest in Nepal.
Yeah.
So I think it's a pent-up feeling coming out. If you look at the origin of this, so some time back there used to be a lot of Facebook pages which talked about Nepo kids, we talked about corruption. So this was brewing somewhere there. So if you look at the kind of people who came out on the streets, like the last peace process happened in Nepal way back in 2006, it's a Maoist peace deal. After that, as you know, like a lot of things happened in terms of writing a new constitution, governments coming, government going. But you had almost 13, 14 governments there. So they were, all this were happening in matter of months, sometimes people changing from one group to the other. So everything was happening so rapidly. But the people who were born after that, or those who were like 5-year-old those days, so they could only see a system which is full of corruption, political families taking the benefit of being in power, so rich kids, and where they are left with a little, like they are in low paid jobs, lack of economic opportunities. Even if people go abroad, most of them were getting very low paid jobs. So all these things were happening in Nepal, and a lot of youth were obviously taking note of this. And also if you look at the new university system in Nepal, which is politically very active, even when there were a lot of crackdown, universities were full of political activities. There were protests, there were seminars, they were talking about democracy, movement, etc. Of late, what happened in the university system also, there is a clampdown. So like political favoritism, nepotism, so appointment of teachers, vice chancellor. So the systems were creaking. And I think the social media ban which happened and which triggered this was a culmination of all these factors. So there was a bunch of people, especially the youngsters, who were upset with a lot of things happening around. Especially they thought all their politicians are corrupt, all their political families are benefiting, people on the streets are left with no choices but to suffer in silence. I think they came to a point where they thought enough is enough. And they went on to the street, and the rest, as you know, is like, even if you look at that last major protest against the monarchy, there also 23 people got killed. So this time, 19 people got killed by a democratically elected government.
Yeah, that number is rising.
Yeah, number is again rising, the number of people got injured. So it was a complete protest for change. It's not only happened in Kathmandu, it happened in other cities also. So a lot of people came out. And also, look at the visuals from that. Most of the kids were in uniforms. They were wearing the ID cards, school, college-going kids. So I think they all were looking for a moment to have something like this. They were trying to throw out the system or change the system or something of that sort. But I think the momentum suddenly got built up, and they could get the Prime Minister to the side.
Nepal is also, as you said, a very young country. The median age in Nepal is 25. Whereas in India, it is increased to beyond 28, which means half the population is below 25. And this is being called a Gen Z revolution. So they look back at monarchy with sort of, they only know it by stories that they have been told or have read. So they look back at that era. There was in the middle, there have been, because of these upheaval.
There were some protests in March that was so-called pro-monarchy kind of a protest. But the thing is that I think they were fed up with the existing political system. It was more of a revulsion against the existing political system than they are getting close to the monarchy or something of that. So Nepal has a history, like the last political dynasty monarchy was there for 240 years. So they have a long history with monarchy. And after 2006, their political experiment gone haywire. Because you look at all the major political parties, whether it is left, right, or Nepali Congress, but they were switching sides, keeping the governments, toppling the governments. Somebody else is coming back to power. So nothing could work there. So if you are in the median age of 26 and you are a 26-year-old, you have only seen this. Like you didn't see anything else. You only see government changing, corruption, and most of the political leadership is there accused of corruption, and all this sort of oligarchy holding a power in certain families. So this age group people, they didn't see a better future. I think that they also didn't have the hope of having a better future unless they do something very dramatically. I think that could be one of the reasons why they went after this. And if you also look at the most popular person there, the Kathmandu governor, he's born in 1990. He's a rapper turned politician. He's an engineer who also studied in Karnataka, India. His MTech. So this is the kind of a thing. So this kind of protest is happening in many parts of. I think a lot of this is very spontaneous. If you look at Bangladesh also, there also what happened is that a lot of youngsters came out onto the street, the famous Dhaka University and the protest and the things that you know. I think the youngsters are pretty restless for a reason, so that's why they did it.
The region is young and there is reason in so many places. Aspirations get blocked and then it comes out. But there is always this overhang or this allegation at least of foreign hand. Now, we also saw a regime change unlike anything else in Sri Lanka, but that possibly didn't play to this particular playbook. But what about Bangladesh and Nepal? These are called color revolutions and people are...
But I think if there is a flux or the situation is, there are elements which could be...
They can only take what is there, ground feeling.
But I think more or less...
But then fanning the flames, no?
Yeah, so far I think it's very spontaneous. That looks like that. If you look at the way things are moving, even some of the ministers or the politicians also supported these youngsters. So I think this foreign hand and all that, of course there will be some hands here and there, but this is an old narrative, I believe. Mostly what is happening is that the aspirations of the youngster in the age of social media, they are exposed to whatever happening all around the world, and at least social media gives them a sense of empowerment, like they give their opinion on the social media, which is followed, shared by a lot of people. So this empowerment of opinions and what they stand for get amplified.
It also affects some commerce, isn't it? Studying and commerce. In a country like Nepal, commerce depends on connectivity, internet connectivity,
Absolutely.
Isn't it? A lot of it.
A lot of it, because it's a tourism-driven thing.
Right.
If you look at most of their tour operators, they operate in social media pages like Instagram or in Facebook. So that is the only thing which actually works there. So a lot of people go to Himalaya, climbing Himalaya, staying there, foreign tourists. But I think more than any foreign hand, of course, when the situation is such, some people will make use of it. But more than anything else, it looks like a very spontaneous outpour of people's grievances, pent-up feelings, frustrations, and anger against the political class as a whole.
So the huge earthquake about a decade ago, and then COVID, which affected everybody. But these things, you're saying the economy never really recovered from.
that, yeah.
So what is the way out for Nepal at this moment?
So one way, for example, today in the morning after the army chief statement, etc., there is a sort of calm on the streets by and large, but you don't know which way it will go. And also some of these protesters, they are saying that most of the arson and firing and looting, etc., were not done by them, somebody else has done it. So sort of calm is seem to be descending on the streets of Nepal across the cities. But now it looks like, because the protest is completely against the whole of established political parties and the leadership. So one way possibly could be bring in an interim government or...
Bangladesh, repeat?
Bangladesh, because it will not be like that. Because Bangladesh, there were so many elements there. There were Jamaatis, there were all sorts of people. Even there were established political parties. That anger was directed against one political regime, one political party. The other side still...
Which had come to be seen as...
But here it seems like that they're going out against all the political leaders, all the former prime ministers. Because if you look at the corruption cases, etc. Most of the leaders and their families, and most of them are into some case or the other, allegation at least, not case proven or anything mostly. But I think that situation is completely different. Now you have to look at a system where there is a sort of a maybe an interim government coming into place. Then they are working out a model, bringing in some tough anti-corruption law, something of that sort, and going forward from there.
So Nepal has for a long time, it just sits pat in the middle and has been for a long time been a playground for many powers vying for influence in Kathmandu. China and India being obviously the biggest, the two neighbors and the biggest ones vying for that. Where does this leave India?
But you have to see, for example, if you go by the Gen Z or the most prominent face of the Gen Z, the Kathmandu mayor, so he's a Madeshi. So he has certain grievances against India. And if you remember, the greater Nepal map he had put out in his office once created a huge controversy. So it's not a very good sign if somebody like that coming to power initially. But then it's for you to work around that leader or work around that system. But for India, Nepal is an important country because like we are close neighbors, we have historical ties. Like even still you have a Nepali contingent in your army, so you have visa-free entry, you can come travel without passports. So such a close neighbor. And also from Nepal's perspective, it's not easy to live with two big neighbors. Like you're wedged between two big neighbors, two big economies or populous countries. So usually any small country will do the hedging. So Nepal has also done it, but KP Sharma Oli was doing it more in favor of China than to India. And in this is the third time he's the Prime Minister. This term he hasn't visited India, which is very unlikely for any Nepali Prime Minister not to visit India in one term. Of course, he visited India in last 2 terms. So for India, it's a very delicate situation because once the regime changes, this is complete. If something new happens, it will be untested. So which way the wind will blow, you don't know. Because in other things, when it is like, for example, in Sri Lanka, JVP comes to power or somebody comes to power, you have some understanding what these people are up to. So if here you are looking at a situation where all these kids are on the street and they are looking for a change, and if it comes to a generational kind of a change, which way you will negotiate that regime or that government will be a tough task. But I think politics and diplomacy is all about that you have to manage. And anyway, you have a lot of stake in each other. Like trade relations are good, people to peoples are good. Like there are kinships, there are all other sorts of shared religion to everything in between these two countries. So there are linkages. It's not like you're discussing about India and Pakistan. The linkages are stronger. Interconnectedness is much more. So I think that way, there will be a tough negotiation or a tough period or maybe a period of unease depending on who comes to power. But I think it is something you have to live with and manage.
So, though it may seem on the surface that these revolutions, these regime changes in the region share some features among themselves, Nepal is unique in that it's a whole generation which is coming up against the whole political class, which speaks to the uncertainty of the moment. Things are still unfolding. We'll keep you posted. This was View on the World. Thanks for watching.